In this video, I'm going to build upon the app that we started in class, the simple app that really just gets the device's current location, and we're going to add a Google Map fragment to it so that not only are we going to get the location of the device, but we are also going to plot that location on a Google Map. So let's start with the app that we already have to be reacquainted with what it does. You click a button and it returns the latitude and longitude of the device. Now remember that with an emulator, the emulators are going to by default set to a latitude and longitude corresponding to the Googleplex in California. To Google headquarters. You can try and play around with the settings with the emulator. To be honest, I haven't had much success. It's kind of hit or miss whether playing around with the device location settings. That's this tab does a whole lot of good all the time, but you're welcome to give that a try. Of course, if you want to try this on a real Android device, an actual physical Android device, that will give you much, much better results. Okay, so we have this base app that gets locations. Now we're going to go and add the Google Maps fragment to this. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to add the Maps dependency to our app. So we're going to bring in this com.google.android.gms play services maps project or library rather. We're going to sync. And this now gives us access to the types included in the Google Maps library. The next thing we're going to need to do is we need to get a Google Maps API key, and then we need to somehow get our key into our app. Now, the thing is that I'm not going to go through the process of showing you how to get a Google API key. You can read the instructions online for that. But I already have a Google API key, and I'm going to use that here in this app to authenticate with the Google Maps service. I'm going to store my Google Maps API key in my app using a string resource. Now, again, as I mentioned in class, this is not a best practice for a production app. This is really only useful when you are building an app for the first time, when you're debugging, when you're developing an app. When you send your app into production and you need an API key, you're going to store your API key elsewhere. But since we're debugging, keeping our API key in a string resource is fine, just so long as we're wise about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my resources, and I'm going to create a new resources value file, and I'm going to name it Google Maps API key.xml. This name is important because I'm going to add this exact file name to the gitignore in my repository. Why? Because I don't want random developers on GitHub finding my API key and racking up a bunch of calls to the API that I have to pay for. It's just not going to be a good scene. So we'll click OK. So next, we're going to embed our key into this resource. And I'm not going to show you my key, but trust me that it is in fact here. Close this. Now that I have my API key in my project, now I need to include my API key in my Android manifest. So let's go take a look at that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a metadata tag inside of application. Metadata, the value, Android name is going to be this value right here, and it has to be that value exactly. And then Android value equals @string/Google Maps key. So when we go to create a Google Map, Map is going to look for this API key. The Maps service is going to look for this API key before it goes and gets the data that we want from it. That's why we need to embed this right here in our project. All right. So we've got our API key. We've added it to our Android manifest. We are importing the Google Maps library. Now it's time to actually start implementing the Maps fragment. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over here to our activity layout, and I'm just going to delete this button and text view that we were using in class. And I'm going to replace it with this. This is a Google Maps fragment object, or at least it will be a Google Maps fragment once we're done initializing it. You can tell that that's what it is by the name right here. So we're going to go ahead and close this now. And of course, we're going to have to remove some of this now no longer needed code. All right, get rid of that. Okay. So now all the rest of the material, all the rest of the work that we need to do is all here in main-activity.java. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to implement the onMapReady callback. And the onMapReady callback imports or requires that we implement a single method, which is onMapReady. And as you can probably guess, this is the callback, the event that is raised once the Google Map fragment is ready for you to interact with it programmatically. So if you think about it from this standpoint, your activity starts, it loads the layout that includes the map fragment. The map fragment needs to load, and then once it's done loading in such a way that you can get a reference to it, that's when this event will fire. So onMapReady, and that's where we're going to begin interacting with our map. So we also want to get a reference to our map that floats around, or that is a field in our activity so that we can use it and refer to it. So let's go ahead and do that now. Private Google Map, mmap. And then finally, we actually need to get a reference to that fragment in our activity. This is not as simple as using find view by ID. So this is very important. You're not just going to use find view by ID to get a reference to the map fragment. In this case, we're actually going to use a different API for selecting the map fragment. We are going to use get support fragment manager, and then we're going to specifically call find fragment by ID. Let's make sure we import that. So really important. You can't just use find view by ID and get a reference to map. You have to use get support fragment manager. Now all this does is get access to the map as a fragment, but we don't just want to get access to the map as a fragment. We want to get an access to a map, the thing that's inside of the fragment. So to do that, we're going to call mapFragment.getMapAsync. And then we're going to pass in a reference to this activity because it implements onMapReady callback. And we save it. And yeah, that's all we need to do for onCreate. Now we could probably just get rid of this onClick because we don't need it anymore. Now, the data that we used to have in onClick, that call to get location permission and get location, we're going to want to move that into onMapReady. But the very first thing we're going to want to do at the top of onMapReady is we're going to want to get that reference to the Google map. mmap equals Google map. Then we'll have get location permission because, again, we still want to ask the user whether they allow us to access their device location. And then we're going to actually get the location. So again, not a lot of changes here from what we were working on in class. The next big place where you're going to see a bunch of changes is right here in get location, because we're going to actually add some functionality. Now, before I get too much further, I need to make a correction. In class, I had you all add your event listener for the location returning to add on success listener. Unfortunately, if you listen to add to on success, when that returns, you won't always get a location because reasons. I don't know why there is both an on success and an on complete. But if you want to actually get access to the location when the get last location task completes, you actually want to key into onComplete. Now, onComplete returns a task object, and so you'll want to get the location from the task object, and then you'll do the work that we're accustomed to doing that we did in class. So again, really important, if you have the code that we were using in class, that code uses add on success listener. You actually want to use add on complete listener, and that takes a on complete listener location object. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and let's do some map stuff. So mmap. So the first thing we want to do is let's set my location enabled to true. That allows our user to use the my location button in their map to go directly to their location. So if they want to recenter their map, they can. And then let's actually get the UI settings for that button. UI settings dot set my location button enabled. True. So again, allowing them to set their location if they want. And now we're actually going to update the map. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a lat long object. Google Maps frequently uses these lat long objects for not just for rendering markers on the map, and you'll be using these a lot, I think, when it comes to our homework. But Google Maps also uses these lat long objects for like camera positioning and zoom animation and a bunch of other things. So this is a really important type when building maps enabled apps. So let's go ahead and create a lat long here equals new lat long latitude. Okay, we need to get that's an actual location dot get latitude, actual location dot get longitude. And now we're going to add a marker, and map, add marker, new marker options, position here, and then title, current location. And then here's where we're going to actually move the camera. So mmap.move camera. We're going to use another one of those static classes that is used to do specific utilities in our code. In this case, it's the camera update factory, and we're going to say new lat long and zoom. So we're going to pass in the here object, and then we're going to tell it that we want to zoom to a level 10. The zoom levels, if I recall correctly, are between 0 and 20. 20 being the highest level of zoom, 0 being the lowest level of zoom. So if you want to take a look at the entire Earth, pass in like 1 or 0. If you want to try and look at street level details, then you might pass in like 20. In our case, we just kind of want to get a sense of the general surroundings. This will give us a view of the town that we're looking at. And then finally, just to make it so that it's not super jarring when the camera moves, we're going to animate the camera, and we're going to use the camera update factory for that too. And we're going to zoom to, and then we're going to do 10 here too. All right, so this should now load a map, show our position on the map, and allow us to move it around a little bit and use a find my position, my location button. So let's see if this will do. And there it goes. Yep, it behaved just like we thought it would. It loads the map, puts a marker on our location in quotes, because of course it's using the default location. And we have our find my location button right here. So if I pull this over here, I can go, take me back to my location. Oh, there's my location. Okay. So in this video, we saw how to add a simple Google Map fragment to an activity. We learned how to add a marker to that activity, and we even learned how to add our own custom title to that map marker. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in class.